and thank you for joining us for another episode of Stories of Great Christians. This one featuring George W. Truett. And I believe we're now into, number 6 of 12. So, without further ado, let's get to George and hear what the story is going to tell us today.
We greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 6 of Forced to Preach, the life story of George W. Truett. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, and is brought to you by the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.
Just a few months after George Truett was ordained, the president of Baylor University, Dr. Carroll, had a talk with him and made him an astounding proposition. He asked George to become financial agent of Baylor University and clear its debt of $92,000 in 2 years' time. So George went to work, and at first things were very, very slow. Nobody gave. Then George himself wrote a check, wiping out every penny in his own savings account, and put that on the offering plate. That night, people gave as never had before. From then on, the money rolled in, and in 23 months, a month less than he'd been praying for, George had raised the Baylor debt. I was so proud of him. Oh, I forgot to say that I met George when he came to Waco to work for Baylor. My father was a Baylor trustee. Of course, I didn't let George know how proud I was, or how glad he decided to come back to Waco after the campaign was over.
Sit down, George.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll.
Registration over?
Yes, sir.
They treated you fairly.
Oh, yes, sir.
Fine. Tried to adjust your credits, but they wouldn't let me. You were so determined to major in English.
It'll be good for my pride to be a freshman again.
A couple of things I want to tell you. You're to continue to make your home with us.
Why, sir, that's very kind of you.
Well, I won't forget what you did for Baylor for a long time. I'm going to ask you another personal question that isn't about Judge Jenkins' family either.
Well, go ahead, Dr. Carroll.
You, have enough money?
Why, I plan to work, sir.
Savings, you have none.
I did.
Did? What do you mean?
Well, that is...
I know what you mean. You gave those savings to Baylor's campaign.
How do you know?
Didn't, I guess. And God bless you for it. Now that's out in the open, I'll start the wheels rolling for scholarship
Oh,
money.
no, sir. Please don't, sir.
Why not?
Well, others need that money worse than I can work. I might even find a church to pastor. I'd rather pay my own way.
You mean that?
Yes, I do.
I won't argue. You've got a mind like mine once it's made up. One other thing, George.
Yes, sir.
Don't get disillusioned at Baylor.
I don't understand.
Not all saints here. You just worked through a campaign for us. And I don't want you to think it wasn't worth the effort after you lived with us.
Well, I know there are all kinds of...
Yeah, it's like somebody drew a straight line between ministerial students and liberal arts. Besides, you're old for a freshman.
No.
Worse than that, you're living with the dean. They'll hold that against you.
I'll survive.
Trouble is, most of our preacher boys are farm boys, and the liberal arts students tease them. Somehow the Lord seems to specialize in country-bred fellows when he calls his preachers. A lot of people just don't realize what happens with a life when God claims it for his own. Keep that in mind, and you'll be all right.
Brother Truett, my name's Carey. I'm chairman of the deacons at the East Waco Baptist Church.
Sit down, Brother Carey. What can I do for you?
Well, sir, you can do a great deal for us. I think we can do something for you, too.
I see.
Yeah, I'll get to the point. We want you to be student pastor at the East Waco Church.
Well, is this the decision of your church?
Unanimous. We heard you in the Baylor campaign. We think you've got just the message for our people.
Well, now, this is a little sudden. I'll want to visit the church and see.
We have a beautiful building. Oh, yes, but mellow with age.
I want to talk with your people.
Oh, you like them, salt of the earth. No friction in our church, no conflicts
You
with...
see, Deacon Carey, I had been praying the Lord to give me an opportunity to serve him while I was in school.
A glorious opportunity in East Waco. Can you come next Sunday?
I think so.
Preach at both services.
I'd be happy to preach twice.
Good. Good, it's all settled.
Brother Carey, before you go, tell me this. What is your membership?
Well, a little better than 100 members. But our building's too small for them. We're growing all the time, just like Texas.
I see.
You haven't mentioned money.
Well, I don't usually.
We can't pay much, just $400 a year, but you'll have the loyal support of all the people, Mr. Truett. That's better than money.
Salary's not important, Brother Carey. $400 a year is highly adequate for the chance to experiment on your people. I'll visit you next Sunday. Miss Jenkins, may I come in?
Of course, George. Now you listen to me, George. I want you to stop this Miss Jenkins business. Call me Joe.
Don't I remember a certain young lady asking me to be very formal with her not too long ago?
George, I'm sorry, really I am. That was awfully silly for a while.
And very uninterested.
You blame me, George?
Well, yes.
Here's a young country boy given a big job at the university. First my father dislikes him, and then he turns around and praises him till it bores me.
Then your father was to blame. I'll talk to him.
Then every time we meet Harvey Carroll, he talks about this George Truett as if he was some kind of genius. As if Texas had been blessed by God when George Truett took up residence here.
You were prejudiced against me before I knew you.
Of course.
And now?
I'm still prejudiced, though, George, so differently. But I'll tell you this, I never thought I'd spend so much time with a preacher.
And that reminds me, I came over to tell you I've accepted the call to the East Waco Church.
George, I'll transfer my membership right away.
101 members.
Or will the young ladies of East Waco resent that? There are young ladies there, George.
I suppose.
Oh, you'll have a perfectly tremendous gain in membership. Mostly female.
Now, don't tease.
I'm serious.
I'm serious too, Joe. I can't remain single and be a pastor.
Oh, you have plans?
You know I have. Joe, I know it's not much of a lie, but as far as material things go, but we'd be happy serving the Lord together. Will you marry me? I love you, Joe.
I love you, too. Of course I'll marry you. I waited a year for you to ask.
To think, if I hadn't come to wake up, I'd never met you. Oh,
What is it, George?
it's 11, your curfew.
Tonight's different.
Not for your father.
Let's wake him up and tell him. George, it's not 11, it's midnight. Look.
Oh, I better get going. I'll have a lot of explaining to do to Dr. Carroll. It's hard to leave.
Bye, George.
Bye.
See you tomorrow. Watch out for the steps, George. It's so dark. And watch out for Shep, too. He sleeps on the porch.
I will. Good night, Joe.
Well, George, it's 12:30. You got an explanation?
Well, Yes, Dr. Carroll.
You should see yourself. How'd you rip your pants?
Jumped over the fence.
You practically killed that poor dog.
What? How do you know?
Never mind, you woke up the whole house. All 9 Jenkins children jumped out of bed to rescue poor Shep.
Dogs should be more careful where they sleep at midnight.
Congratulations, Joe.
What?
Joe had to explain about the time, so she told the family you proposed. The judge was so happy you'd think he'd engaged himself all over again. Well, she's a fine girl.
Thank you, sir. I knew that the first time I saw her.
Brother Truett, it's been a wonderful year.
For all of us.
Tell me, what have you named the baby?
Jessie. That's Joe's mother's name.
Lovely, lovely. Your wife all right?
She's fine. Coming home tomorrow.
Good, good. Yeah, I think she'll like what we did to the parsonage. Taking those old doors off and brightening up the woodwork some.
Oh, I'm sure she will. Your volunteer workers have put in a lot of hours. Church is shaping up, too.
Done in another month. Brother Truett, you've done wonders for our church. Inside of a year, our membership was doubled. We're going to have a new auditorium that'll seat 350 and everything paid for.
When God blesses, he does it without measure.
It's God, all right. Yeah, I wouldn't have told you when we called you, Mr. Truett. I didn't think we'd have it grow.
Excited, George?
Who wouldn't be? Joe, I'm finally finishing college. I feel like I'm an old man.
All things come to him who waits.
And works. I'm glad we're both going down the aisle. Not every husband and wife graduate from college together. I was scared. There weren't nearly as many people. Besides, this time we have a baby to worry about. Where is Jessie?
Her grandmother's spoiling her as usual. When I left, she was sleeping.
What a child. Her father goes to school on and off for 10 years, and when he graduates, his only heir sleeps right through it.
Another one?
This makes the 6th call. Joe, this isn't right. This one's from Dallas.
Dallas? Where?
First Baptist.
First? George, that's a strong church.
I know it is. But they get the same answer I gave the others. I'm happy here in East Waco. Besides, I want some seminary work at Baylor. The answer is no to First Baptist of Dallas. I just had another letter from Dallas, Joe.
Oh?
They won't take no for an answer. Voted unanimously to call me.
Well, can they do that?
They did it.
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to go to Dallas myself and give them a courteous no.
Chapter 6 of Forced to Preach, the story of George W. Truett. This has been another in the series Stories of Great Christians, transcribed from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.
This was a nice chapter where George finally gets married. To his surprise, I guess she changed, especially with his accomplishments. I wonder if that happens to other guys. Also the thought here of turning down First Baptist. That's a pretty prestigious church where a lot of things happen later on. And it is interesting. Firstborn child, and sometimes, even though we think we're doing the right thing, or we know better, we can't buck the plan and the destiny God wants for us. Sometimes we, even reluctantly, resistantly, or forced to preach, we learn that the Lord is in control and we are not, and His will be done. Till next time, Lord keeping me around, Lord keeping you around, and I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you hit subscribe. Not only that, I hope you invite a friend over, pour him a cup of coffee, give him a bite to eat, and leave a comment. If you need a prayer, you let us know. We'll pray for you. In the meantime, God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and don't forget, keep sharing Jesus, growing grace. Till next time.